Well, I don't know whether you can hear me, but I'm on a rooftop. Surprise, surprise. Over there are some apartments, and over there are some apartments, and there's always a chance that somebody can be on those, but unless you've got a Mosin, there's no chance you can see anybody on directly on top. That's pretty close. Let's have a deep breath. Now, there are gunshots around, but whoever it is that's shooting isn't shooting enough for me to track in on them. But we'll have a look. We'll have a look, see what we can do. Let's just check down there. Now, the worst thing about getting down from this building is that you are going to be shot from over the factory over there, or for in fact anybody that's running around any side on here. So, quickest way down. So they snoop round first. You get a lot of people down here. Now at the moment this isn't a full server, so I can hear some gunfire, but it's not nearly as much at UK 6 o'clock. But I suspect there's probably at least 30 people. Now if I was here UK 6 o'clock and I stood here, well, I'd be dead. Now what the server does do is it teaches you really quickly how to do everything with your weapons and your manoeuvring. I wouldn't say I could play the main game of DayZ as good as any like 20 or 30 year old, but I could certainly now use all of my weapons without worrying about it. Which is one thing that when you first come to DayZ is a big problem, because it is quite complicated. I mean, for instance, you might wonder why I'm skulking along here. I'm pushing the run button, but it's doing nothing. But if I push the stand up and then push the run button, then I run. So simple things like that make a big difference when you're actually being shot at. And unfortunately, when you're being shot at, your brain doesn't work that way at all. So you just end up getting shot. You know, simple things like climbing on a ladder known to push shift and S to slide down like this. Feels like a fun ride. Are the things you don't know. Of course, when you climb up there, you've got to spend half your life getting up there. But sliding down makes sense. So, one of the first things I found when I started playing this version of DayZ was I hadn't got a clue how to load my weapons. But I don't know. I know they'd made a change with this version 1.04. But I think it's similar with all of the other versions, is to load your weapons, and it's partly what this server's about, is being able to learn all of that. But I have got, if I stop and I push, a law and an FX45, and the game lines you up with these two primary and secondary weapons and then a series of primary and secondary ammo. And I know that in early versions of DayZ what you would have to do is you'd have to take your weapon to your hands, or already have it in your hands, and you would have to drag the ammo across to reload it, which is a ball ache, and gets you killed, particularly if you're a newbie, because you think, oh, I've got to go in the inventory to move my ammo across. But I think that's one of the things about being a noob, is that you don't know everything. But it may have been in for a while, but you can just push number 3, which is where my quick load for my ammo is. Go back, yeah. See number 3 here is the ammo for this gun that I've currently got selected. Now if I just tap number 3, I'm actually just holding the ammo. Not very useful, but it is actually useful, because if you're wandering around in the normal DayZ, you'll find boxes of bullets and you have to put them into the magazine before you can use them. So that is useful, because you do have to do that. But again, if you've got that ammo in your hands, and you can only do it this way around, then you would unbox first, and then you would drag the ammo into the magazine. And I'm not even sure if that's what would really happen, because it would say, do you want to load each of these things into your magazine? And then your magazine would be in your inventory, and you'd have to carry it to your gun while you're in your inventory. So being able to do more of those operations while you're actually not in your inventory is a good thing. Right, so onto the actual gun itself. Right, so here I am. I've got quite a good view here. There's some better viewpoints of this map. This isn't too bad. I can see a bit. So, you can't see a gun on the screen. So, tap left click. Now, when you first tap left click, you'll actually be looking down your iron sights. And on some guns, that's fine if you're close up. Sometimes the sight will impede you. Well, you can always take the sight off. Here's the sight here. You can, if you've got space, you can drag it away. So now when I look down my gun, I've just got the iron sights. Okay, well, let's put those back on the gun. Look down them. This is a sight that's got iron sights on top of it. The gun's got iron sights, the sights have got iron sights, and also I can look through the scope itself. That takes a lot of your screen up, that does, and it takes a little bit of time to get used to that. Now, I wouldn't say that I'm used to this at all, and a lot of the time I think if there's somebody between me and the I don't know what you call these things here, concrete pillars, cooling station, whatever, I'd be a lot happier with the sights off and just lining them down the iron sights. I'll just show you that. You know, so gunshots. I'm pushing control, and that stops him wandering around so much. He holds his breath, and then basically whatever's on top of the little sticky up feather in between your two sights is what you're going to hit, which is not strictly true, because if you're aiming downhill, uphill, or over distance, you've got to range your gun. But that's well out the scope of this video, because that's an art form in itself that anybody that's ever shot a gun will tell you. But on most things on DayZ, when you first start, you're going to be shooting within the range of about 200 meters. So if you stick it on 200, which you don't spawn in with, you'll find will be roughly okay. But obviously, as soon as you start using the scope, that's not going to be okay whatsoever. And if you want to change that, it's simply page up and page down. So if I page up, if you look in the left corner there where it says I've got 0 ammo, 1 in the barrel, LAR gun, full automatic, push C, crouch, push X, semi-automatic. So I can change, if I've got a good scope on me, I can go all the way up to 600 with this gun, which is nowhere near enough for the Chernobyl city centre. If you want to shoot from one end to the other, you're talking 800 metres, but you wouldn't hit a person very easily at all with that distance, because by the time they've run, you've got to be aiming several inches across your view portal, left or right of them, because by the bullet travel, it arrives, they've already moved. So in this area here, which is obviously much closer than that, 200 meters drop is only like, I don't know, top of the head to the bottom of the head drop. So you're going to hit them somewhere on the body if you aim at the face. Right, let's put the scope back on and have a look at that. So with the scope on now, and like I said, the scope itself has got iron sights on it. So I'm just simply clicking the left button, but you may find that when you click it, it comes to here. That's not a problem at all. That just means that you're firing from the hip. You're not actually looking down your gun. And in many situations, this is good for close combat. But you've got to appreciate that if you measure the left-hand side of the screen to the very tip of my barrel and the right-hand side, you'd find that you're actually nowhere near the centre. And so the bullet travels from just in front of the scope to the very tip of the bullet. If you imagine drawing a virtual line, and it travels out of the gun along that line, if somebody's very close to you and you're aiming and they're next to my elbow, you're not going to hit them. Okay, so you have to put the gun into them, the tip of the gun, and that will hit them. But apart from that, you've got to imagine a virtual line that goes off to infinity, running from the buttstock through the gun graphic to the tip of the gun and off to the center point of your screen, which is probably on this shot here about here. It's the left of this bush, so that point there on this bush just in front of me, this tree bush thing, from this distance, if somebody was in front of me standing at the bush now, I would hit them. Because you've got to appreciate that the gun's going diagonal from your right shoulder outwards, and it's your perspective of your gun. So if you wanted to hit somebody much further away, you're probably much more likely to hit them, because the triangle, the infinite triangle that you're drawing from the center of the screen, from the angle that your gun is pointing, will converge onto it from your shoulder. It's parallax, it's just parallax. But the other thing as well is, when you start to shoot over long distances, very long distances, which I'm not going to be able to do or show you from here, because this gun is nowhere near powerful enough. Oh yeah, if you've got iron sights on and you scroll your mouse forwards, you'll look down the sights. If your scope has got both up and down on your scroll wheel, okay? But there's just no way that I can show you parallax. But what I can show you is a bullet drop. So you got a 4 and a 6 on your scope here, and that's basically saying that if the further away something is, the more gravity will affect your bullet. And a lot of the time, that's really easy to work out. Some scopes, particularly in Armour and DayZ mod, will have the AK scopes will have people drawn on your scale of the size that they may appear in your vision in different positions. Now if you're looking down your scope and I was to, for instance, hold my breath and put it on that line there, for instance, now, the problem is the further away people are, the smaller they appear, and that's because they're further away. but also gravity takes effect, and over distance the bullet will have dropped. Between here and there it will have dropped. Depending on the distance, obviously gravity is almost a constant, a definable amount of distance, and that's what these lines are on your scope. Now the 4, the 2 and the 6 represent 400 meters and 600 meters if you haven't scoped in, if you haven't ranged your scope in. So at the moment my scope is ranged into 200 meters, bottom left hand corner next to where it says LAR. Obviously, so the 4 and the 6 aren't really applicable anymore because I've changed the scope. If I move it back to 100, those are applicable. So at 400 meters I will be hitting down at the 4 tick, and at 600 meters I'll be hitting at the 6 millidot tick. So to hit somebody at 6 millidots, which this is not 600 meters away, I would line it up at the 6 where the black meets the thin line. If somebody's at 650, then you have to adjust for that, so you'd have to go just above the 6. This scope obviously is only geared for it being between 600 meters and 0. So what do, you either range your scope 200 meters, that's bang on the crosshair, big horrible yellow thing in the middle of your scope. But if the person's at 200 meters, they will practically fill your scope up anyway, so you'll be able to see their head, their shoulders, their arse, almost down to their boots inside your scope by the time you actually take the shot. Right up to the fact that their head will be at the top of your scope and their feet will be at the bottom, and possibly even further away than that. The worst case scenario at 200 meter scoping is probably you're going to aim at their head and hit them in their body, you know. So as soon as you then change your scope to 200 to 300, you're changing that dynamic. So somebody that's 200 away, instead of hitting them, aiming at the head and hitting them in the arse, you'll hit them in the back. But you've got another dynamic, and the other dynamic that a lot of people don't realise is angle shooting. I'm shooting down a hill here. Gravity works perpendicular to the land. So if you aim down the land at 45 degrees, you have to take 75% off your scope distance, and that's the simplest fact. You can do the SOHCAHTOA, sine, tangent, cosine rule, and you'll realise that gravity will have dropped that bullet less by the distance travelled. It's a simple way of looking at bullet travel. But if you're looking directly down at 45 degrees, you can roughly say that it's 75%. So, and that's equal if you're looking up at 45 degrees as well from the horizon. Yeah, because your bullet travel velocity. Different guns travel at different velocities, so you have to work this out for every gun as well, really, but they're roughly the same in DayZ. Obviously, if you're shooting down directly, you don't have to scope your gun at all. So even if somebody was phenomenally lower than you, if for some reason you managed to find a building that was 1,000 meters high, you would definitely never want to scope your scope to 1,000 meters, because you would be massively off. Simply, scoping is lifting your scope to point higher to take consideration of gravity, and there is no gravitational force deflection applicable when you're pointing straight down, because that's the direction that gravity works. You're only taking account of gravity in a straight line with your scope, and you're simply changing it if you're going 45 up, 45 down, to something that's pretty well known, and in between you just have to just judge it, really. But those are the key points that you can learn quite easily. 200 close, distance scoped as close as possible for straight line, When you get straight line, you'll go, oh, why aren't I hitting that person? They're 400 meters away. Well, the reason you're not hitting them is probably because you're a lot higher than them, or they're a lot higher than you, and that changes everything again. So you have to take into proportion the fact that gravity is why you are scoping in a straight line. And so if you're pointing up and down, you get different maths. Right, so there's not many people in this at the moment. It's a beautiful server. It's a great way to have a little romp around, spawning with a fully geared character. Absolutely fully geared character. I mean, I've just spawned in. What have I got? I've got LAR, I've got an FX45, I've got 3 hand grenades, fully geared up. And I was watching another YouTube video. I can't remember the name of the guy. He was saying, I think he said the one that's all in black is one of the worst. Actually, he's got the LAR. I think the guy that he was talking about had a shotgun. So LAR is pretty good actually. So looking at the inventory here, we've got a saline bag here. If you take your saline bag to your hands by moving it to the hand swap area, you can actually like give yourself saline, bring your fluids up, bring your meds up, bring your blood up. Don't really want to do that now. I haven't been shot. That's more of an emergency thing. This server tends to keep everything relatively even if I run around a lot, which is what I'm going to do now actually. So let's just sort of have a run around, bump into the walls maybe. Not much to look at here. Right, so there are some gunshots. When the server's full, there's 2 things you can do. You can either, well, there's 3 things. You can die straight away, which happens quite a lot, to be fair, when you're new, and less often once you've got used to the fact that you need to run your arse off as soon as you get into the server and get your gun loaded. And if you spawn, which you can do with somebody on the same spawn point as you, get your ammo in your gun straight away. Like I said at the start of the stream, the best thing to do is you will spawn with your primary gun in your hands. So if you simply press 3, the number 3, when you first come in, which I will do now, you will load your magazine into your gun, and it won't have a magazine when you spawn. So let's have a look around. Oh, what to say really? The problem, what can I say? There could be somebody up there. We've got a river here, we've got a bridge. Basically, this is DayZ. When you've got 100 people in the server, the noise is so intense near the city, and you will always get people sitting on these buildings at the side. So if you stand around, you're going to get shot. Probably one-shotted as well, to be fair, because most of those guns are high-powered guns that are going to be shooting from that distance. So I prefer. I have a bit of a play around with sniping, but I do really like having a look around, collecting, I don't know, extra ammo up and stuff, but getting myself into a position where I can just romp through the town centre. So I've spawned, not in my I don't know. Every place has got its pros and cons, but I do like a little bit of a romp. But spawning right bang in the city or in the docklands, you might die straight away. I can already hear gunshots in this, but I haven't heard one probably in 10 minutes. If this was 6 o'clock UK time, it's almost continual, the gunshots are. So if I just drizzle myself down this little gap, yeah. So this is about the left-hand side most points along the coastline that you really want to, if you're a romper, romp from, and it's basically a case of just whacking your magazine in and just being aggressive. Run along all the cartons, run from the most westerly point over here to the most easterly point over there. And there's like a V shape in the coastline as well, so it's not like a straight line. You will get fired on heavily, you have to use cover, but it's a bloody good way to get used to using everything that you would use inside DayZ. And I think if you come into a combat situation within DayZ, you'll be ready for it. Now, if this was 6 o'clock, there's absolutely no chance I would survive standing here. I haven't heard a gunshot for 10 minutes, and I'm not dead by doing this. I mean, there's an ammo box here. Might as well take it. Right, so I'm going to run. So imagine I've just spawned in, probably somewhere over there, by chance. I'd run along here, start to see buildings, break through the crates, check my flanks, be listening to gunshots, probably somebody up on one of these, probably somebody on that factory over there. You start to run towards where the noise is, but you'll hear lots of noise around here. You'll have somebody doing similar to what you're doing possibly as well, so they'll be running through, zipping around, high powered rifle. They'll be going like, oh, hip shooting, bang 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 bang, or if you tap it, here it comes, you know, spotting people through the gaps. Now, you might think, why did I just shoot? Well, why not? There's nobody in here. But also that acts as a bait shot, so anybody that is in here, I might get some action now. Okay, I'm just going to run and see if somebody just kills me. See where the C appears at the end. They'll have heard the shot, they'll be looking down here, so that they can see me running through these gaps where they're looking. Remember, if you zoomed in with your scope, you can't see anything. Well, here's the V shape, and you can see the docks go on for a much longer journey. This is a big place. So, yeah. I'm out of ammo, so press down 3 and see in the animation there I have no ammo. There we go, we stick the magazine in, look back, and we have a magazine in. Click zoom, shooting. Okay, get a lot of snipers in this game. It's a lot more fun just to jump around this area here and just fight people as they come. Oh, somebody's died. That's what you'll see. Oh, there's somebody on the cable there. Let's shoot him. By the way, this When it's full, I don't know how many people are in here, but there could be as many as 30 people in here now and you wouldn't know. It's such a big city. So let's just try and play a bit of pro, like, so you nip yourself down the corner, up down the roadway, lots of people. Anybody poking their heads out, look at the windows. No, step out, die. Oh, I didn't die. It's all the water. We haven't got to worry about water and stuff. Not that I've noticed anyway, it always got a down arrow on it. Now, if I was to get shot, I wouldn't be too worried either. Well, we've come to the end of our journey here. Partly because I don't want to swim over there and go all the way back either. But there's nobody in, nobody to kill, nobody's killing me. You need to ask me some questions, I guess. And I'll pretend I know the answers. So, good night.